back to another powerful episode of Healthy Mind, Healthy Life. I'm your host, Avik, and today's episode is one that beautifully blends ambition, resilience, and heart. Like, we often hear about the success stories, right? Like in highly competitive industries, but rarely do we get to peek behind the curtain to see the grit, the setbacks, the values, and the deeply personal motivations that make success possible. But my guest today is someone who truly embodies all of that. So please welcome Kirstine Openshaw. Welcome to the show.
Hello. Well, thank you for having me on here. I'm excited to talk some more.
Amazing. So, dear listeners, before we delve into the discussion, I'll quickly update today's with Christine. So, Christine is a powerhouse in the Texas luxury real estate market. And since moving from the UK to Texas in 2006, she has consistently ranked in the top 0.5% of agents, earning or earned, I would say, the Icon Agent Award with EXP Realty, and built a reputation for the innovative marketing, and the personalized service. But beyond the accolades, what makes her story so inspiring is her heart. So, as a mother of two sons born with congenital heart defects, she is the only I'd say she's not just only a fierce advocate for CHD awareness, but also someone who brings the empathy, resilience, and authenticity into everything that she does. Like from negotiating high value deals to supporting her community. Yeah. And today we will walk through her journey, how she built her career, the lessons she learned, and what it really takes to stand out and succeed in a world as competitive as real estate. So, welcome to the show again, Christine.
All right, I appreciate it. So, yeah, I mean, you touched on a lot of my story there, and I feel like the reason I feel drawn to sharing more on my story is because so many people in this industry, as well as other, entrepreneurial based industries, is we hit roadblocks and we automatically, like the voice inside our head will tell us, this is why it's not for you. This is why you shouldn't be doing what you're doing. This is too hard. The industry is too flooded with other people. Like just in my area, we have over 60,000 agents with a license. Um, so when I hear with the local reports that I'm in like the top 2 or 300 of those agents, my voice in my mind immediately goes, well, that can't be right. There's no way. There's some fantastic agents out here, but it just goes to show that the voice that we live by is not always telling us the truth. Like that voice is driven by survival. So our survival instincts, they haven't really changed over the last several decades and years and years and years. And we tend to let that run the show. And it creates so many limiting beliefs that I feel like my story can be used as an example for other people that maybe you're struggling with some of those same things. We've been through a lot. We moved here when I got my license. So I had no sphere of influence. I had no group of people that knew me and liked me and trusted me. I didn't have community that was going to just give me business. I had to create that from scratch while having no income. So it was very much a survival based time in my life where I was like, okay, I can either succumb to believing that the market is flooded with other agents, or I can believe that everybody else that already has a sphere is going to do better than me, or I can put that aside and say, well, I don't really know that to be true because it hasn't happened yet. I'm going to choose to have the perspective that I can do this. I can try my hardest. I can learn what these other agents are doing, and I can put that to the test and actually outperform them. And that is exactly what we've done. We've built a really, really successful team. Most of my business, I'd say almost 95% of my business now is referral based and repeat clients. So I don't have to pay for ad spend. I don't have to call expireds. I don't have to do the things that they're just not my favorite to do, even though I had every excuse in the world and every reason to not have the success that we've had. You know, we I had contracts closing while we lived in the hospital with my youngest son. He had multiple open heart surgeries. We were in the hospital for 6 months. there was every reason in that time frame to let my mindset go down the drain and fall into victim mentality of, why me? Woe is me. Why is this happening? It took us 7 years to have our first son. So we had every legitimate reason to hate that time period, but it was one of the fastest growth periods of my business as well.
Luckily, yeah. And like the real estate industry is definitely the competition. I mean, full of competition. And so, do you think that standing out is more about the technical expertise or about the personal connection?
Um, I think realtors are sold and real estate agents are sold on the idea that it's all skills, it's all tech, it's all AI, it's all marketing and pretty brochures and things like that. I think that's what we're sold. That is not what actually sells real estate. Um, you will see some agents come in and they'll spend thousands of dollars. I've seen agents do it. I've had them on the phone with me, panicking that they've spent thousands of dollars on marketing materials, but yet they have no connections with people to put those marketing materials in front of. So they end up sitting in a closet. They end up never getting mailed out. If you send a mailer to a neighborhood and you have no personal connection to that neighborhood, how is that going to stand out to every other piece that they get from huge, huge companies? It's not, right? However, if you were to also follow that up either with door knocking or calling the neighborhood, which, we have all these outside reasons that that's more difficult now than it used to be because of new, legislations and things with new bills passing. However, there are still ways that you can connect with these people, host a community event, be someone that comes in and hosts a neighborhood garage sale, host an ice cream truck. There's so many different ways that you can have an opportunity to meet people. And when they get that personal connection to you, then you can layer in some of the tech skills. Then you can layer in some retargeting ads. But if you don't have that personal connection first, everything else is going to take longer and it's going to cost more.
Hmm. Got it. Yeah. Amazing. And like, I love that because I mean, so often we assume success comes from being the loudest, but what you are describing sounds much more about authenticity and intentional relationships. So, true, definitely. Right?
Mhm.
And like, you have described yourself as the heart warrior mom, and your advocacy for the congenital heart defect awareness is clearly close to your heart, definitely. So, how has this personal journey influenced not just who you are as a mother, but also how you show up in your professional life?
I think as far as how it shows up and helped adjust how we are in my professional life, it's really shown me that you just truly never know what's coming as far as your own life, your own hurdles, your own obstacles, and that you really do need to learn to trust the process, that things are working out. Even if they're not working out the way you had planned, they're working out. And when you have that and you have more awareness and more acceptance that things
Yeah.
are gonna be okay and things are gonna have a funny way, because that's what happens, right? You'll have a chance meeting with someone and you'll think, "Well, that's so bizarre that I was just here in this right moment to meet this right person." But maybe you had to have challenges happen in order to lead you to be at that moment in the right time. And the more awareness you have of these things and the more acceptance that you have, it gives you more flexibility versus being attached to, well, this is the way I wanted it to be. I wanted it to work ABC, and now it hasn't. So I'm going to spend 5 months being mad about it. What chances are you missing by that? I mean, we had no intention of living in the hospital for 6 months. We had no intention of having a medically complex child living at home. We had no intention of any of these things. This is not how we envisioned having our first newborn, right? However, we just had more acceptance of it and said, okay, this is how this is going to be. So, how can we make the most of this? How can we make the best of it? How can we roll with this and still run the business? you have two choices when these things happen. You can either choose, and I could have either chosen pity and, poor me and that victim mindset. And I could have stayed home alone and been miserable with things and looked at it through the lens of this is unfair. Or, and this is the way that I did choose, was how am I going to continue building my business while I learn how to navigate this? And because I chose that option, I get to be home now with my child. My youngest just started pre-K, so he's out, doing his little thing, becoming his own person. My 7-year-old with his heart condition, he's home with me. We get to homeschool. I get to homeschool. I get to still run my business because I made that choice. So it shaped me in the way of understanding how critically important it is to have the awareness to actually make that decision. A lot of people will say, well, I just did what I had to. But did they make the actual awareness happen to make that decision, or did they just by default go with that decision? Because if it's just by default, you're missing the most important step, which is having the awareness first. Because the more awareness you have, the more flexibility you have. And when you're flexible, you have options. And when you have options, you're less tied to this feeling of being trapped that this is not how you wanted it to be. And so when you have options, then you can make better informed decisions and have more success.
Mm, great. So, like, do you think, I mean, do you find that sharing that personal side of your story helps clients connect with you on a deeper level?
I think sometimes it does. You have to be very aware and very careful because some people don't know how to react to others' trials and tribulations and struggles, right? So I can tell one person that my son was born with half a heart. He was on, life support. He coded and had to watch him have CPR. Some people I tell certain aspects of our story to, it overwhelms them. And they can sometimes their mindset can take them down the road of, "She's too busy. She can't help me. I'm not gonna be a priority." So you have to be very careful of how you balance your personal life and how you share about it, because you don't know the lens that your prospects are looking at you through. You don't know that they haven't had a situation, maybe it wasn't as difficult. Maybe their kid had a broken leg and they had to go to the ER at 3 a.m. and that exhausted them, and maybe they got fired from a freelance job that they were working that week because they were so distracted with their kid. If that is their perception, where their perception's coming from, they're gonna look at you and go, "You can't serve me because when I had something happen, I got fired, and I don't wanna have to fire you." So you have to balance it with your make them feel the most important. Make sure you take you out of it, connect with them first. Then you can share some of that rapport and some of your story. A lot of salespeople will come in and go, "Well, I support this charity because this happened to me and this is why it's important to me." Blah, 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 blah. And you're immediately out of rapport with the other person because they don't know what that's like and they've never experienced that and they don't know what you're talking about. So instead of them saying, "I have no clue what you're talking about right now," what are they going to do? They're going to go, "Thank you so much for your time. We'll call you." And do they ever
Mhm.
call you? No.
Exactly. Wow. Amazing. Amazing. So, uh, we will talk about the challenges. I mean, the real estate market can be kind of, let's say, unpredictable, like
Mhm.
shifts in the economy, interest rates, buyer behavior. So, what were some of the toughest obstacles like you faced on your journey, and how did you navigate through them?
I would say in the real estate, the toughest part of it, because I'm naturally, I feel like all entrepreneurs are naturally more of a problem solver, and I want to overcome things with and for my clients. So when there are outside contributing factors like the rates, like when we had our COVID market and the rates were down in the 2 and 3%, and competition was so incredibly fierce, and sellers didn't really need agents because houses were just selling themselves. Buyers, they just felt dejected because they couldn't compete if they didn't have hundreds of thousands of dollars of cash sitting around to compete. That was a tough market in that way because So many people were coming to the market, so many agents were coming to the market. It was a tough time for maintaining your mindset. It was a tough time for not getting your time wasted with people that weren't brave enough to offer the way they needed to offer and win. And that taught me an awful lot about human psychology. Um, there was a test one time where they brought two people that didn't know each other into a room, and they gave one person $10, and they said, "You can split this with the other person however you want, but the deal is they know you have $10 and you're splitting it with them. What they don't know is however they split it, you guys get to both take $10 home. If they don't accept the split, you both leave with nothing." Well, if that person that had the $10 split it 50-50, and the other person was like, "Okay, yeah, cool, 50-50," they both left with 10 bucks. What mostly happened was the person with 10 gave the other person, say, 2 bucks, and the other person felt like that was rude and it was unacceptable, and they labeled the other person greedy. When that happened, they both left with nothing because they would rather cut their nose off to spite their face and not take the $2, and therefore they got nothing. We had a lot of that happening in the COVID market, and having to learn that buyers would happily cut their nose off to spite their face because they thought sellers were being greedy. We had to learn about human psychology pretty quickly to stay in the game of how do we help buyers get out of their own way, because you cannot tell someone that is making the biggest purchase of their life, most likely, to just get over it. That is not going to work. That's like telling somebody that's having a temper tantrum to calm down. It's not going to go well. Probably best just to bypass that and not do that. So that was an extremely challenging time of slowing down long enough to really dig into this lane of understanding people. But now that the actual market has slowed down, which is another challenging time because it's something outside of my control, it's not something I can problem solve. If the affordability is not something they can overcome, it is not something they can overcome. And I am not in the convincing industry. I'm here to help them make the best decision. So if it truly isn't the best thing for them, I'm not going to tell them to do it. I'm not going to convince them to do it. So that leads to, okay, this is an outside influence, right? This is not something I can just change the interest rates for them. So I'm having to draw on all that human psychology and understanding how people work to really find their true motivation and really not necessarily push that pain point, but just highlight it to them so they can then decide if it's enough pain, because 95% of people are motivated by pain. They're not motivated by their dreams and their goals and their dream home. Most realtors wanna market to their dream home. Most buyers wanna buy because of a pain point. So there's a disconnect there. So all of that human psychology is now coming to fruition in that I'm able to help buyers really figure out why it's important to buy, and sellers why it's important to sell even though it can feel like they're selling at a loss. Getting to that heart of that motivation is helping overcome the challenge of the real estate market doing its thing right now.
Exactly, exactly. So, amazing. So, looking at your success today, many aspiring realtors or the entrepreneurs listening might wonder that what's the one lesson you wish you had learned earlier in your career that could save them time, energy, or the stress?
Oh, it's hard to pick one lesson, but I think the biggest thing is letting go of the attachment to the outcome. I think that has been my most powerful move out of everything else I've done in real estate. Letting go of thinking it has to look a certain way, letting go of thinking that because it worked for agent A, it's automatically going to work for me if I copy everything, because that is so untrue and it's just not going to happen. The circumstances are different, the timing's different, the individual audiences are different. So just letting go of this idea that I can either make it happen the way I want it or that it's justified that it should happen that way, that has opened up the door to so much flexibility, so many more options and connections in ways I don't believe I would have ever had otherwise.
You will lovely. And like, if someone listening wanted to start building a standout career today, what's the very first step? I mean, you tell them to take.
The very first step I would tell them to take is to really deep dive into their own belief system of why they believe people should use them and work with them, no matter what the industry is. And from there, build out what are the highest concerns? What are the most frequently asked questions? What are the biggest problems and hurdles that their ideal client profile, so their ICP, what does that person run into the most? And how are you the best fit for them? And I'm a super visual person, so I need my whiteboards up. Figure out how you learn and how you're going to take this information in, whether it's writing it down, creating a spreadsheet, whatever it is, pros and con it, so that you can see, okay, they have this is their main problems. This is how I fix those problems. This is why I have the belief that I'm the best person to fix those. Then figure out your median of how you wanna put that in front of people. Some people, it's events. Some people, it's face-to-face door knocking, meeting them. Some people, it's hosting open houses. Some people, it's video or social media ads, whatever it might be. But there's no sense in running ads if you don't know your message, and there's no sense in having a message that doesn't speak to their pain points of their prospects.
Mm. Well, lovely said. Very lovely said. And any suggestions you want to share with the listeners today?
Um, I think the biggest suggestion is just to believe in why you got into the industry that you're in. So whether that's real estate or whatever other entrepreneurial journey you're in, there's a reason that it came up as an idea for you to do it. So don't let any of these limiting beliefs or beliefs from other people inhibit you from trying to the full extent. But don't also be so attached that it has to look that certain way that you might miss potential opportunities and potential connections with people that could make it even greater than you ever thought it would be. Um, sometimes that can there's a saying that you may start climbing a mountain towards your goal, you get halfway up. It's okay if your goal changes. Because when you're halfway up the mountain, your viewpoint changes, your perspective changes. Suddenly you see there's another path over to your right. It's okay to abandon this goal because getting halfway there opened the door to the perspective and the view for a new goal. So don't get super stuck in this is where I wanted to be. When I first started real estate, I had a 3-year plan to get my broker's license, start a brokerage, and hire a lot of agents. That is not what I am doing today. I am now at a brokerage where I don't have to do any of that, but I still get to help agents. I still get paid to help agents without any of the liability. If I had stuck to that 3-year plan that I had when I started, the opportunities I have now would not have been opened up to me, and I would have missed out massively.
True. Exactly. Hmm. Amazing. Amazing. True. That's really lovely, Christian. And thank you so much for sharing your journey with such honesty and the passion. Like from your bold move across continents to becoming one of the top agents in Texas. Uh, I'd say your story, shows us that success is all about far more than numbers or the rankings. It's all about resilience, authenticity, and heart. So, for everyone who is listening, if you are pursuing a dream in a competitive field, let this conversation be your reminder, like your unique story, your values, and your willingness to keep going even when it gets tough are what will truly set you apart. So, Christine, what will be the great medium to connect?
You guys can find me on all the social media platforms just under my first and last name, or if you want to reach out about any extra help or anything like that, I do have the magneticadvantage.com as well where you can reach me, and I have all my social media links on there as well.
Yeah, all right. Perfect, perfect, lovely. Great. So, dear listeners, I'll put all the links into the show notes for your easy reference. And with this hope, until next time, stay healthy, stay mindful, and keep walking your path with purpose. So, thank you so much.